January 8th, 2026, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Constitution Avenue Northwest, Washington the 600th. The marble facade of the Marriner S. Eccles Federal Reserve Board building catches the first slate blue light of a winter morning. 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans roll past the security bollards without slowing. They stop in a tight diagonal across the C Street entrance. 12 agents in Navy windbreakers, FBI New York Securities-Fraud Unit, on loan to the DC field office for the joint takedown, step out in a choreographed line. Special Agent Lawrence Yu, lead investigator on the case file, carries a sealed manila envelope containing a federal arrest warrant signed at 11:47 p.m. the previous night by United States Magistrate Judge Helene Marbury of the Southern District of New York. Inside the building, on the 4th floor, Dr. James Witherington III is already at his desk. He arrives every weekday at 5:45 a.m. The cleaning staff knows his routine. He drinks black coffee from a chipped Princeton mug and reviews the overnight Bloomberg terminals before the rest of the Federal Open Market Committee staff economists arrive. He is 58 years old, 19 years inside the institution, senior staff economist. He sits 4 chairs from the table where the 7 board governors decide the federal funds rate 8 times a year, decisions that move $9 trillion of global capital within 30 seconds of their public release. At 6:03 a.m., Agent Yu and 3 colleagues are escorted up to the 4th floor by Federal Reserve security. They do not knock. Witherington looks up from a Bloomberg chart of 2-year Treasury yields. He does not appear surprised. He sets down the coffee mug. He says quietly, "I assume this is about the analyst from the SEC." Agent Yu reads the warrant aloud. 23 counts of securities fraud, 23 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy under Title 18, United States Code, Section 371, 1 count of bribery of a public official. Witherington stands, folds his suit jacket over his arm, and offers his wrists for the cuffs. He does not ask for a lawyer. He does not say another word. At that same instant, in 6 other cities, the operation is unfolding. Manhattan, Greenwich, Stamford, Boston, San Francisco, Chicago, 6 hedge fund offices, 6 CEO residences, 41 simultaneous warrants, the largest coordinated insider trading takedown in the history of the Securities and Exchange Commission. _checkpoint 030 hook resolution Ts. This is the story of Operation Red Meridian, of how a single Federal Reserve economist with a Princeton doctorate and an unblemished service record fed advance notice of 22 consecutive interest rate decisions to 6 of the most aggressive hedge funds on the East and West coasts, of how those funds generated $9.2 billion in trading profits over a 5-year window, of how one 34-year-old market surveillance analyst at the SEC ran a single regression on a Tuesday afternoon in October and found a statistical signature so violent it could not be anything else. ACT1. Discovery. October 14, 2025. SEC Division of Economic and Risk Analysis, Office of Market Surveillance, 100 F Street Northeast, Washington the 600th. Senior analyst Andrea Kowalczyk-Brewer is 34 years old. She has worked at the Commission for 9 years. She holds a master's in financial economics from the University of Chicago and a second master's in applied statistics from Carnegie Mellon. Her job description is unglamorous. She runs anomaly detection scripts against option chain volume data feeds from the Options Clearing Corporation. Most days she flags routine market maker behavior, occasionally a small cap pump and dump, very rarely something that requires escalation. On October 14th, she is supposed to be writing a quarterly compliance report. Instead, she is running a sandbox query on her own initiative into something that has bothered her for almost 3 months. In July, while reviewing routine option flow data preceding the June FOMC announcement, she had noticed an unusual spike in short-dated SPY and TLT put and call activity roughly 20 minutes before the 2 p.m. Eastern release. The spike was not enormous. To anyone glancing at the tape, it looked like ordinary positioning, but the directionality was wrong. The market had been pricing in a 25 basis point cut. The contract flow she saw was positioning for a hold. The Fed announced a hold. The contracts paid out at roughly 40-1. She had filed a routine memo. Nothing came back. She let it go. In October, she decides to look further. Not at one announcement, at all of them. She pulls option chain data from every FOMC announcement going back 6 years. 24 meetings. She writes a regression. The dependent variable is anomalous option volume in the 8 to 30-minute window preceding the 2 p.m. release. The independent variables are macro surprise indices, prior day volatility, and historical positioning baselines. She runs the script at 3:42 p.m. Eastern on a Tuesday afternoon. The output prints to her terminal in 7.2 seconds. She stares at the number. She runs the script again. She gets the same number. She pulls a fresh copy of the source data from a different OCC feed to rule out a corrupted file. She runs the script a third time. Same number. The pre-announcement option volume signal across 22 of the last 24 FOMC meetings is 47 standard deviations from baseline. For context, and this is the context Andrea Kowalczyk-Brewer writes by hand on a yellow legal pad while sitting at her desk in stunned silence. A 5 standard deviation event in market data is generally considered evidence of fraud or manipulation. A 10 standard deviation event has never been observed in honest markets in recorded history. 47 standard deviations is a number that does not exist in nature. It is a number that exists only in the presence of perfect foreknowledge. She does not go home that night. She prints the regression output. She prints the underlying option flow tables. She walks 2 flights up to the office of her direct supervisor, Deputy Director of Surveillance Constance Mwangi-Hartley. Mwangi-Hartley looks at the printout for 40 seconds. She picks up the secure phone on her desk. She dials the office of the SEC Director of Enforcement. By 9 p.m. that night, the Director of Enforcement has briefed the Chair of the Commission. By midnight, the Chair has placed a call to the Deputy Director of the FBI's New York field office. By 7:00 a.m. the next morning, Special Agent Lawrence Yu, 16 years in the Securities-Fraud Unit, lead investigator on the Galleon resentencing review, a man who is described by colleagues as physically incapable of looking surprised, is on a 9:15 a.m. Acela from Penn Station to Union Station with a paper folder under his arm containing the SEC referral and Andrea Kowalczyk-Brewer's regression output. Agent Yu reads the folder twice during the 3-hour train ride. He does not eat the sandwich he bought at the station. He arrives at SEC headquarters at 12:32 p.m. He spends 4 hours alone in a windowless conference room with Andrea Kowalczyk-Brewer, asking her to walk through every assumption in her statistical model, every data source, every parameter. He is looking for the mistake. He does not find one. At 4:47 p.m. he stands up, shakes her hand and says, and several witnesses in the surveillance bullpen will later recall this exact phrasing, "Miss Kowalczyk-Brewer, you have just handed me the largest case of my career. I need you to tell absolutely no one outside of this room what you have found. We are now in a counterintelligence posture. The leak is inside the Federal Reserve. ACT2 Conspiracy Map. The investigation that follows is conducted under a codename selected by Agent Yu and SEC Enforcement Director Eleanor Pham Costa during a closed-door meeting on October 17th. Red Meridian. The name is drawn from a line in a classified internal memo describing the precise 4-hour, 17-minute window between when FOMC decisions are finalized in the boardroom and when they are publicly released to the wire services. That window, the Red Meridian, is the period during which the foreknowledge must have been transmitted. The team is small by design. 6 FBI agents from New York, 4 SEC enforcement attorneys, 2 Treasury Department forensic accountants, a single Federal Reserve Office of Inspector General liaison, Inspector Geraldine Hoivans, who is read into the case on October 19th and who is the only person inside the Federal Reserve System told that an investigation is underway. The first task is to identify the leaker. The team knows the leak is inside the Fed, but the FOMC staff is not small. Roughly 60 staff economists are present during the briefing process for each rate decision. 22 of them have access to the final decision text in the 4-hour window before public release. The team begins not with the leaker but with the recipients. Agent U's hypothesis is simple. If the option positioning is 47 standard deviations from baseline and consistent across 22 meetings, then the trades are not random. They are placed by a small, identifiable set of accounts. The team subpoenas, under sealed order, the trading records of every institutional account that placed options trades in the 8 to 30-minute pre-announcement window across the relevant 22 FOMC meetings. The pattern emerges within 4 days. 6 funds, the same 6 funds, every single time. Tributary Capital of Manhattan, run by Daniel Vossel, age 46, a former Goldman Sachs proprietary trading desk veteran. Halcyon Edge of Greenwich, run by Maya Stratford Lee, age 43, a former Bridgewater senior portfolio manager. Meridian Light of Stamford, run by Tariq Achebe, age 51, formerly of Citadel. Vector Quantitative of Boston, run by Dr. Lyle Penrose, age 55, a former MIT econometrics professor who left academia in 2014 to launch the fund. Skyborn Partners of San Francisco, run by Imelda Vasquez, age 48, formerly the head of Asia Macro at a London-based hedge fund. And Apex Macro of Chicago, run by Henrik Olsten, age 53, a Norwegian-born former central bank quantitative researcher. 6 funds, 6 CEOs, all of them macro-focused, all of them positioned again and again on the correct side of every Federal Reserve interest rate decision in the 4-hour window before that decision was made public. The combined options profits across the 22 meetings, calculated by Treasury forensic accountants, total $9.2 billion, not all of it taxable in the United States. Significant portions routed through Cayman Islands and Luxembourg fund vehicles, but the trading itself was placed through prime brokerage accounts at 3 Wall Street investment banks, which is how the SEC was able to pull the option chain records under existing surveillance authority. The second task is to identify the channel. How does the information move from the Federal Reserve Board building in Washington to 6 hedge fund trading desks across the country in less than 4 hours? The team obtains, again under sealed warrant, the personal communications records, phone, email, encrypted messaging, of every one of the 22 staff economists with pre-release access during the 22 meetings under investigation. The records cover a 6-year window, 11 million data points. The forensic team at the FBI New York field office, working in shifts around the clock for 11 days, isolates a pattern. A single staff economist's personal cell phone, registered to a residential address in Bethesda, Maryland, placed an outbound call to a single recurring number on the afternoon of every single one of the 22 FOMC decision days between 10:14 a.m. and 10:31 a.m. Eastern. The calls lasted between 47 seconds and 3 minutes and 12 seconds. The recurring number is registered to a small business in Brooklyn called Witherington Tutoring Services LLC. The staff economist is Dr. James Witherington III. Witherington Tutoring Services LLC is incorporated in the state of New York. Registered agent at a UPS store mailbox in Brooklyn Heights. Sole officer and director Quentin Witherington. Dr. Witherington's 32-year-old nephew. Quentin Witherington has no listed clients, no employees, no website, and no apparent tutoring activity of any kind. What Witherington Tutoring Services LLC does have is a corporate bank account at a small private bank in the British Virgin Islands, into which 6 wire transfers from 6 different offshore entities, each one ultimately traceable to one of the 6 hedge funds, have been received over the relevant 5-year period. The total received, $47 million. Retichin_checkpoint, 4 o'clock Stakes Bend, ACT3. Investigative Wall. By mid-November, Operation RED MERIDIAN has graduated from a referral into a full federal task force investigation. The case file is now coordinated out of a secure conference room on the 23rd floor of the Jacob K. Javits Federal Building at 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan. The room contains an enormous whiteboard, 12 feet wide, on which Agent U has drawn the entire conspiracy in marker. At the center is Witherington's name. Lines radiate outward to Quentin Witherington, to the BVI shell account, to the 6 hedge funds, to the 6 CEOs, to senior portfolio managers at each fund, and to a constellation of facilitators, lawyers, offshore corporate service providers, a private banker in the Cayman Islands, a former Goldman Sachs prime broker who left the firm in 2021 and is now believed to have brokered the original introduction between Witherington and Daniel Vossel of Tributary Capital. 23 names eventually find their way onto the wall. Witherington himself, the 6 fund CEOs, 6 senior portfolio managers, 1 at each fund, each one named on internal trading authorizations that place the anomalous pre-announcement orders, 8 facilitators, including 2 attorneys at a prominent New York law firm who structured the offshore payment channel, 1 private banker, 2 corporate service providers in the British Virgin Islands, 2 former central bank colleagues of Witherington's who appear to have been informally compensated for consulting, and the former Goldman prime broker, a man named Holden Marsh Vincent, and 4 shell company directors who served as nominal officers of the various BVI and Cayman entities used to route the payments. The legal architecture of the case is built simultaneously. SEC Enforcement Director Fam Costa coordinates daily with 2 career federal prosecutors from the Securities and Commodities Fraud Task Force of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. The lead prosecutor is Assistant United States Attorney Gabriella Aronson Pike, 14 years at the office, 3 prior Wall Street fraud convictions. Her co-counsel is Assistant United States Attorney Devin Holloway, a younger prosecutor who specialized in financial regulatory cases at Main Justice before being detailed to New York for this case specifically. The case is built on 3 legs. First, the statistical signature, Andrea Kowalczyk-Brewer's regression, now reproduced and validated by an independent econometrics team at the SEC and submitted to 2 outside academic referees under non-disclosure. Second, the communications pattern, the 22 recurring phone calls from Witherington's cell phone to Witherington Tutoring Services LLC in the 4-hour, 17-minute pre-announcement window. Third, the financial trail, $47 million of offshore payments matched through forensic accounting to the 6 hedge funds' trading profits. But the prosecutors want more. They want a witness. They want one of the 23 to flip. The most likely candidate, the team decides, is the nephew. Quentin Witherington is 32 years old. He lives in a converted loft in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. He has a master's degree in fine arts from Yale that he has never used. His listed occupation is consultant. His federal tax returns for the past 5 years show consulting income averaging $200,000 annually, none of which appears to relate to the $47 million passing through his shell company. He is, in Agent U's assessment, a nominee, a name on paperwork, a relative trusted to hold the door open while the money walks through. The team makes a tactical decision. They will approach Quentin Witherington 1 week before the planned raid. They will offer him a cooperation agreement. They will give him 48 hours to decide. On the morning of December 18, 2025, 2 FBI agents knock on Quentin Witherington's apartment door. He opens it in a bathrobe. He invites them in. They explain calmly what they know. They show him the bank records. They show him the wire transfers. They explain that he is currently looking at 23 counts of conspiracy to commit securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, with a sentencing exposure of up to 140 years. Quentin Witherington calls his lawyer. His lawyer calls AUSA Aronson Pike. By December 20th at 4:30 p.m., Quentin Witherington has signed a cooperation agreement under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 11 C1C. He provides, in a sealed proffer session that lasts 6 hours over 3 days, the full operational history of Witherington Tutoring Services LLC. He provides the encrypted messaging records between himself and his uncle. He provides bank statements. He provides the name of every fund executive who personally contacted him to arrange a wire transfer. He provides everything, BREK through. The proffer that Quentin Witherington delivers between December 20th and December 23rd, 2025, is the document that converts Operation RED MERIDIAN from a sophisticated circumstantial case into a closed-loop conviction package. Until the proffer, the prosecutors had statistical evidence of foreknowledge, communications evidence of contact, and financial evidence of payment, 3 legs of a stool, but no single witness who could narrate the conspiracy from the inside. After the proffer, they have all of it. Quentin describes the recruitment. In the autumn of 2020, his uncle James, then 53, 2 children in college, recently divorced, carrying alimony obligations he had begun to describe at family gatherings as untenable, sat him down at a Thanksgiving dinner in Westchester County and explained in clinical language that he had access to certain predictive economic information and that he was looking for a family member to help him structure a small consulting practice around it. Quentin, who at 32 was an unemployed MFA holder with a girlfriend in Brooklyn and a mounting credit card balance, said yes. He did not ask what the information was. He suspected but did not confirm that it was related to his uncle's work at the Federal Reserve. Quentin describes the introductions. In January 2021, his uncle introduced him to Holden Marsh Vincent, the former Goldman Sachs prime broker. Marsh Vincent, in turn, introduced him to Daniel Vassell of Tributary Capital. The conversation took place at a private dining room of a steakhouse on East 49th Street in Manhattan. Vassell, Quentin testifies, asked exactly 2 questions: how often will you have it, and how early? Witherington, meaning his uncle, answered, 8 times a year, 4 hours, 17 minutes. Vassell extended his hand. The deal was made over a glass of Macallan 18. Over the following 6 months, similar introductions followed with the other 5 CEOs. By July 2021, all 6 funds were on the network. Quentin's role was simple. After each FOMC decision day, between 10:14 and 10:31 a.m. Eastern, his uncle would call him on a personal cell phone, never on a Fed-issued device, and read him a single sentence describing the imminent decision. Quentin would then, using a series of disposable phones and encrypted messaging accounts, distribute that sentence to designated portfolio managers at each of the 6 funds. The funds had less than 4 hours to position. They positioned aggressively. They positioned correctly, every time, like prompt. If you've made it this far into this reconstruction, do me a favor and hit the like button. It tells YouTube to show this kind of investigation to more people who care about how white-collar federal cases actually get built. And subscribe if you want to follow more of these cinematic dossiers as we drop them. Now back to the raid, AAT4. The raid. January 8th, 2026, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The operation is executed simultaneously across 7 jurisdictions. The coordinating command post is the 23rd floor conference room at 26 Federal Plaza. Agent U watches the takedown unfold on a wall of 7 monitors. Each monitor carries a live feed from a body camera worn by the lead agent on each of the 7 primary entry teams. In Washington, the 600th, at the Federal Reserve Board Building, Witherington is arrested at his desk at 6:03 a.m. Federal Reserve Chair himself is notified at 5:50 a.m. by Inspector General Hua Vance, the first time the chair has been told that the investigation exists. The chair authorizes the arrest to proceed inside the building. Witherington is escorted out a side entrance at 6:11 a.m. and driven to the Washington, the 600th field office of the FBI. He does not speak during the transport. In Manhattan, at the offices of Tributary Capital at 437 Madison Avenue, 22nd floor, Daniel Vassell is arrested in his glass-walled corner office at 6 a.m. He is wearing a tailored suit. He had arrived at 5:30 a.m. to monitor the Asia close. When the agents enter, he closes a Bloomberg terminal window, stands and says, "I assume my attorney has already been notified." His attorney has in fact been notified at 5:58 a.m. by AUSA Aronson Pike as a professional courtesy. In Greenwich, Connecticut, at a 14,000 square foot mansion on Round Hill Road, Maya Stratford Lee is arrested at her home at 6:02 a.m. She had been on a conference call with her London team. She asks for 30 seconds to put on a blazer. The agents grant it. She is transported to the federal courthouse in Bridgeport. In Stamford, Tariq Ashebi is arrested at the offices of Meridian Light at 6 a.m. In Boston, Dr. Lyle Penrose is arrested at his home in Cambridge at 6:01 a.m. In San Francisco, where the local time is 3 a.m. Pacific, Imelda Vasquez is arrested at her residence in Pacific Heights, having been awakened by federal agents executing the warrant at 3 a.m. sharp. In Chicago, Henrik Olsten is arrested at his Gold Coast condominium at 5 a.m. Central, having been pulled from bed by an entry team of 6 FBI agents. Concurrent with the 7 primary arrests, 16 additional warrants are executed across the eastern and western seaboards over the following 90 minutes. Senior portfolio managers at each of the 6 funds are taken into custody at their respective offices and homes. Holden Marsh Vincent, the former Goldman prime broker, is arrested at his apartment on Central Park West at 6:14 a.m. 2 attorneys at the prominent New York law firm, both partners, are arrested at their respective residences in Bronxville and Scarsdale. The 4 shell company directors, 2 of whom reside in the British Virgin Islands, are detained by local authorities under previously coordinated mutual legal assistance treaty arrangements. The remaining 2, residing in Florida and New Jersey, are arrested by FBI teams at 6 a.m. local time. By 9 a.m. Eastern, 22 of the 23 defendants are in federal custody. The 23rd, a corporate service provider based in the BVI, is arrested at Miami International Airport later the same morning while attempting to board a flight to Panama City. By noon, the SEC has issued a press release announcing parallel civil enforcement actions against all 6 hedge funds, seeking total disgorgement of $9.2 billion in trading profits, plus statutory penalties of an equivalent amount. By 1 p.m., the Department of Justice securities-fraud section has unsealed a 56-page criminal indictment in the Southern District of New York. By 2 p.m., the chairs of the Senate Banking Committee and the House Financial Services Committee have issued statements demanding congressional hearings. By 3 p.m., the Federal Reserve has issued its own statement announcing the immediate suspension of all FOMC staff, with pre-release access and the launch of a top-to-bottom internal review of its information security protocols to be conducted by an independent commission. ACT-5. Aftermath. The legal proceedings that follow Operation Red Meridian unfold over the course of the next 18 months. Quentin Witherington, the cooperator, pleads guilty in March 2026 to a single count of conspiracy and is later sentenced to 38 months in federal custody, with a recommendation for placement at a minimum security facility in upstate New York. Dr. James Witherington III initially attempts to negotiate a plea, but the negotiations collapse in May 2026 when prosecutors decline to recommend a sentence below 20 years. He proceeds to trial in November 2026 in the Southern District of New York. The jury deliberates for 4 hours. He is convicted on all 23 counts. He is sentenced to 24 years in federal custody. He is 59 years old at sentencing. He will be 83 at the earliest projected release date. The 6 hedge fund CEOs follow varied paths. Daniel Vassell of Tributary Capital pleads guilty in July 2026 in exchange for an 11-year sentence. Maya Stratford Lee of Halcyon Edge proceeds to trial and is convicted on all counts, drawing a 14-year sentence. Tarek Achebe, Dr. Lyle Penrose, Imelda Vasquez, and Henrik Olsten all eventually plead guilty under various agreements. Their sentences range from 8 to 13 years. The 6 funds themselves are wound down in court-supervised liquidations. Customer accounts are returned over the course of 14 months. The disgorgement proceeds. $9.2 billion are deposited into a fair fund administered by the SEC for partial restitution to affected market participants. Andrea Kowalczyk-Brewer, the SEC analyst whose regression broke the case, is promoted to Deputy Director of the SEC's Office of Market Surveillance in April 2026. She declines all interview requests. Agent Lawrence Yu retires from the FBI in September 2027 after 23 years of service. The Federal Reserve adopts 12 specific information security reforms recommended by the Independent Commission, including a restructuring of the FOMC pre-release notification protocol and a new system of staggered, segmented access to final decision text in the 4-hour window before public release. Subscribe to FBI Secret for more cinematic reconstructions of the federal operations that shape our world. The Fed insider who sold 22 rate decisions for $9.20 billion title _end for 5 years, a senior Federal Reserve economist on the FOMC staff fed advance notice of interest rate decisions to 6 elite hedge funds exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes before each public announcement. 22 consecutive quarterly decisions, $9.2 billion in trading profits. The leak held until a 34-year-old SEC market surveillance analyst ran a single regression on a Tuesday afternoon and found a 47 standard deviation pattern that could not exist in honest markets. This is the full cinematic reconstruction of Operation RED MERIDIAN, the largest coordinated insider trading takedown in the history of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Red Meridian file =intro_end =ALT1. Aggressive storm/raid. FBI storms Federal Reserve at 6 a.m. $9.2 billion insider trading ring exposed. ALT2. Informative. How a single SEC analyst cracked the biggest insider trading case in history. ALT3. Victims/scale. 23 indicted, $9.20 billion stolen. The Federal Reserve leak that lasted 5 years. ALT4. With series tag. The Fed economist who sold 22 rate decisions for $9.2 billion. Vertical bar. FBI files =additional_end =. Wide cinematic shot of the marble facade of the Marriner S. Eccles Federal Reserve Board building at pre-dawn blue hour. 3 black Suburbans parked diagonally across the C Street entrance with red and blue strobes throwing light across the columns. Foreground left. A stoic FBI agent in a navy windbreaker holding a sealed manila warrant envelope. Top right overlay text in bold red, $9.20 billion. Bottom left overlay text in white block. Operation Red Meridian. Mood, cold, institutional, irreversible, offer cover, and